Welcome in everyone to episode 125 of the Bat Flip Podcast. My name is Damien here with Matt and David, and this week we become the commissioner of baseball for one day and make a few changes to the game. But before we get into that, David, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing better now. Dansby Swanson just hit a home run, but it's been a good week. Not for my baseball team. They've been playing like crap, but overall, yeah, good week. Getting into working out again, so that's kind of nice. I'm having fun with that with my girlfriend, and it's been good. So Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Had a pretty good week watching some baseball and hanging out, watching other sports as well. So it's been a really good week. Pretty busy. So how's it going, Damien?
It's doing all right. Finally have some not hot or cold weather here, so I've been enjoying the 60s and 70s in California for the 2 weeks that we're going to get it for a little bit. So did some yard work, did some work on my dad's shop, and watched my Dodgers beat the Padres after they decided to put a crying Clayton Kershaw on the video board after the first game.
That was so dumb.
Yeah, it was pretty dumb. But overall, it was a good week. And I'm excited to see what changes we bring to the game as we kick Rob Manfred out of the commissioner seat and become commissioners for a day. So we each got 3 changes we're going to make. 2 of them are going to be kind of straightforward, realistic changes that we think should be made. And then our last one will kind of be a little bit wacky out there, just a change that we think would be fun to see and maybe start some conversation on. But we'll go ahead and start with David. What was your first rule change as commissioner?
Yeah, so my first rule change is going to be to adjust an existing recent rule change, which is I'm taking the runner on second in extra innings rule, and I'm moving that sucker to the 12th inning. I think it's not a bad rule for what it's supposed to do, which is to end the game quicker, right? It's supposed to prevent 18 inning marathons where your bullpen just ends up being totally run down and player injuries go up. As a rule for that, I agree with it. I think it's got a place, but having watched, I think it was like a 14 inning game this week, the extra inning runner was literal. It was the entire, like, everything revolved around that, and it really ruined the flow of the game where some teams can kind of make the contact and make the bunts, and you can focus your entire inning around just scoring the extra runner and then hoping that you can prevent the other runner from scoring, and it really changes the way the game is being played, especially when you're still competing for wins. And I want to see a more cohesive understanding of the extra inning rule. So I'm pushing it past the 12th, right? Let's give us 3 extra innings to decide this thing. If you can't decide it in those extra 3 innings, then we'll start putting the runner out there. Not a whole lot of games have gone past the 12th inning anyway, so I don't imagine that this is going to lengthen games any more than it already does. And it just gives it, an opportunity for games to have a more natural feel to their endings. So I don't know. I've seen some people coming around on this rule, and I think it's got a place in terms of preventing those 18 inning games. But I want a few more extra innings of regular baseball before we get there, especially because we're already shortening the amount of time the game takes. So let's allow for some baseball to breathe here in those extra innings before we start cramming a runner onto second base. So Matt, what's your rule there?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to it that runner on second. I love your idea there, and it just the
Yeah, it's a
fact
really
that
good
it
idea.
yeah the fact
Mhm.
that it just randomly takes less randomness now. Like you need less randomness in it, especially like you mentioned when you're teams in pennant races late in the season. Like it would be a shame if it got decided on a pitcher coming in and not giving up a hit, not even giving up a base runner and losing the game, and you lose the game because of the weird wonky rules. So I'm 100% behind that. I agree. But my rule change, my first one is a strike zone challenge system where we have the challenge system when you got a runner on first, second, third, tag outs, whatever. But I'd like to see us. I know there's been a lot of talk about robo umps, and one way I like the idea because it makes the game a little bit more. It takes a little bit less just complete. boneheaded error by the umpire out of the game. But at the same time, like, it takes a lot of pitcher skill or catcher skill away. It takes away a little bit of human element. It feels a little less natural, the game does if you do that. But what the strike zone challenge could do is you could make it where, like, basically you could call for a challenge, kind of like, I don't know if anybody's watched tennis very much, where they have like you have the little challenge system where you basically just raise your hand up, and the ball, if they have like the TrackMan or whatever that shows if the ball hit on the line or not. Like, they could do the same thing, like, immediately with with a pitch in the strike zone, to where, if there's a call in a biggest part of the game, or there's some egregious call or something, you could challenge it, and maybe you get like 3 a game or something, and you could challenge it. And then if it's not a strike and they called it a ball, if it's a strike and they called it a ball, then you can, obviously get that overturned, or vice versa. So it kind of takes away a little bit of the, like, egregious calls or the huge game defining calls out of the game, while still keeping the natural feel of the strike zone. And I think I kind of like the idea of it. So
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea too. I mean, we've seen I believe it's one of the minor leagues are
Yep.
testing it out as well.
I think so.
AAA.
And I think is it AAA?
Yep.
I know they're half season. They were going to go with like an ABS automated ball strike system, and then they were going to go half season with the strike zone challenge. So I really love that idea. I think it's, especially with it's a much better alternative rather than having the fully automated strike zone. I think that having the umpires still there, I like that much better than any little one that nicks the zone is always a strike, or because I feel like a lot of batters won't like that. And I feel like a lot of pitchers probably won't like it either, because they're not getting that little bit off the edge, and it doesn't allow for the adjustments from the pitch or from the hitters throughout the game. And I really do like the strike zone challenge idea. I think it's, if we do see anything close to like an automated strike zone or a rule change coming with the strike zone, I see that's the most easiest rule we would probably get.
It's genuinely perfect because it functions in the same way as like a football challenge, right? Where,
Yeah.
not every single one of those kind of ticky-tack plays is something that you challenge, but even the challenges at the big league level, right? You just challenge those very influential pitches, and then you lose it if you miss your challenge, right? So it's like, it's the perfect thing to kind of, you know, allow for the batter to also have some control in that sense as well. They'll be the one to call it, and if the batter doesn't call it, then it doesn't matter, right? But if they disagree, that's where it comes from. It's not like the manager, it's not the dugout, it's the batter.
Well, and I think it'd be really interesting too to see if a team gets 3 challenges per game, and then how do your batters use them? Because obviously they're going to have to be the one to call it. You can't just have like the manager say use a challenge here or whatever. So they're going to have to be pick and choose when batters use them.
I'm using it in like a 3-ball count to get a walk. If, let's say, it's well outside, and the ump calls it a strike, gives them like a 3-0 strike, I use a challenge there to get on base, right? And then late in the game, 2 strikes, you take one outside, they call it strike 3. That's the pitch that gets challenged too. I think those will be the most common places it's used.
Will be. It's going to be pick and choose though. If you have a guy, you can't use, like, if you have a 3-ball count in the first inning or 5th inning, you don't want to use them all 3. By the time.
Speaking of the strike zone, did y'all see the umpire yesterday? Jimenez, I think is his name. He's a new one, and he had like 80% on his strike card, his card. That was like, man, it feels like umpires have gotten better in the last couple of years, but with all the people being accountable from that. But like, man, that was rough.
Yeah, it was not good at all. But for my first rule change, I went with probably the easiest one here. I went with the layup, but it's to end the blackout restrictions that we have on the baseball games. It is utterly stupid that a person living in Southern California couldn't just buy MLB TV or get a like weekday ESPN game because the local channel has it, and if they don't have cable or something, like, you should be able to buy an MLB TV subscription and get every single game. And that's on top of all of these games now that we're having on Peacock on Sunday mornings, or Apple TV on Friday nights, or I guess the YouTube ones really don't have anything, but when they have live YouTube games, like, you should just be able to click onto a subscription if you have like MLB TV and watch every single game, no matter where you're at, for every team. Like, and I don't even care what TV needs their revenue from it. Well, you're still watching the TV's broadcast. Like, I don't care if MLB is going to give me the commercials for that TV's broadcast. Like, just give me the full spectrum feed for the Dodger game. I'll watch all the commercials from the thing or let them be on there. But like, I don't care if you give me like your mattress thing that they do. Like, it's stupid. Just you're still watching the feed. If you have an MLB TV subscription, you're watching the Apple TV game. I shouldn't have to pay the Apple Plus membership like for every month just to watch the one game that my team's going to be on this year or two games when I already have the MLB TV subscription. Just let me watch the Apple TV game on the MLB app. Like, it's not that hard. I don't understand why everything is so held up by it. Just give us the full broadcast. TV networks still get their their money's worth from it. You're still watching their ads. Give them all the info from that, how many people tuned in on your app, because I'm sure they track it. It's just like, why are we still in 2023? And if I live in Southern California, I have to use a VPN if I want to watch the Dodger game while I'm away from home. It's stupid.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And just kind of the biggest part that I had an issue with is the Peacock and Apple TV games, because I mean your team's gonna be on there maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, and you're gonna ask people to pay $10 a month for a year subscription if that's the only reason for them to get that app or that streaming service. And I mean it's like it's really dumb. And I know you can do it and then cancel your subscription, but like after the free trial. But I like the idea of just ending blackouts in general, but I just, I mean, I just, it frustrates me that Peacock and Apple TV stuff is out there. Like, it's just dumb. It's bad marketing for baseball too. Like, why are we putting our product behind a paywall? Like, put it on a local, let ESPN broadcast more games or something too. Like, grow the game. I mean, just this, it's crazy.
It's clear what the path forward is because you see it with other sports. You see other sports putting themselves out there, allowing more access to their content, allowing, providing TV shows where their athletes get exclusive interviews. You see that with golf, with Formula One, with a bunch of the racing sports like NFL. It's very Hard Knocks, right? You've got accessibility to their players. You've got a lot of very clear and easy ways to watch all of these games. And then when it comes to baseball, if you don't live in the area, it's near impossible to watch your team unless you pay big prices for MLB.TV, or like Damien said, you use a VPN and try to just find a way. Why is baseball hiding from their audiences, right? Like, that's the biggest problem is you have this streaming service in MLB.TV. If I want to pay $100 a year or whatever to watch my team, I should be able to pay to access my team every game, right? My dad lives in Georgia. He's a Cubs fan, right? He can't get Cubs games in Georgia. And it's just a frustrating juxtaposition of, well, we need to make money to grow the game, so we have to keep all our guys hidden behind these RSNs and stuff, but then we don't actually grow the game because no one can watch. So yeah, I'm with you on that one, Damien. We got to get rid of those blackouts.
Yeah. So David, what is your second rule change?
Well, last year, as we recall, the baseball was pretty clearly different when Aaron Judge was taking those plate appearances late in the season. It was measured out as being a bouncier, springier ball. We have the juiced ball season a few years ago in 2021. Last year, the ball was more deadened. And then currently in Double A, the ball is being pre-tacked. And spin rates are up, and strikeout rates are way up across the league, and then walks are way up. The hit batters are up because pitchers are spinning the ball a lot more, got a lot more movement, and it's kind of out of control right now. My solution as the new commissioner for baseball for the day is to use one baseball. We're just going to have the one. Everybody's going to know what it is. They're going to know exactly what goes into it. We're going to keep the specifications near exact. We're going to do everything in our power to not be changing the baseball from year to year. We're going to identify one. It might be the juiced one. It might be the tacked one. I don't care. We're going to come together, find exactly which ball everybody wants to use, and we're going to use that ball all the time. Same batter, every batter, every pitcher, everything. One ball, not mystery balls.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought last year's ball was great. I thought it was fine. I don't like the juice ball where everything's a cheap home run, and I don't like that tacked ball stuff that everyone's talking about in Double A. I think that's dumb. I think they need to just use the ball they had last year. And I mean, I don't understand why we have to change it all the time. And I think it's kind of dumb. So I'm with you, David.
Exactly. And even if it's not right, last year the problem was the ball was good sometimes, and then sometimes it was also juiced. We have to have the same ball, man. It's just ruining are we believing Judge's record is tarnished because he was getting better balls? I certainly hope not, and I don't want to believe that. So I want the same ball. I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah. So Matt, what is your next rule change?
Yeah, I think my next one's one that's for sure coming, and that's 32 team expansion. There's actually been some talk about this lately. With the A's moving to Las Vegas, that's one of the two teams that need new stadiums that are kind of getting, or the A's possibly moving to Las Vegas. Sounds like there's still some weird stuff going on there, but there's really only one team left that needs a new stadium, and that would be the Tampa Bay Rays. And that's kind of been the threshold to clear for them to kind of look at expansion again, is for those two teams to kind of get their situation handled so we know if they're moving to another city or not and what markets are going to be available for that expansion. And there's been some talk about about some different places. I know there's been some talk lately about Utah, like Salt Lake City. There's been talk, of course, about Nashville, Portland. I guess there's still been some form of talk about Montreal, even though I don't really think that's going to happen. Another Texas team like San Antonio or something would be interesting. But there's I definitely think 32 teams are coming, and I'd like a couple things about that, in that I think it helps the playoffs with the expanded playoffs to have it go to 32 teams. It kind of makes that ratio of percentage of teams that make the playoffs better. I like adding the extra jobs. There's so many good players that are playing in AAA right now that can't find a spot at the big league level, that adding those two teams will help some of those guys find their spots. And I don't know. I like expanding the game to new markets. I think it'll be really cool. To see a team in a place that's never had one before, a place like Portland, or I would love to see a team in Utah, except for the elevation. I don't especially want another Coors situation, but I think it's definitely interesting to look at. I think it's definitely coming soon, and I'd be very interested in how they would do the expansion draft and stuff too. I think that would be a kind of a cool thing to look at once they do this expansion, as to how that team building aspect is going to work out. I think that'll be pretty neat. So exciting.
Yeah, it would be really exciting. And then another thing that it would bring on, during the expansion would be realignment of divisions and leagues. You'd probably have to see them move to 4-team leagues.
Yeah.
Or 4-team divisions, I should say, not leagues. And then that would also become, you're going to have certain teams in different divisions, and how to protect the rivalries. I think it's going to be really interesting. It is coming. I think we know it within at least the next 10 years. I think it's even going to happen within probably 5 years. At least it's going to be announced on what's going to be happening. But it's going to be exciting to see here in the future. We've seen what hockey's done it recently with 2 teams, and both those teams have had tremendous success right away. I mean, Las Vegas went out and won the title in their first or second year.
I think they were runner-up, but they went to the final. And I've been watching the NHL playoffs a little bit, and the Kraken are in it, the Seattle team, and their crowds are awesome. So
yeah,
I think the Golden Knights are in it too. I think it's both.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Yeah. No, but the Golden Knights were their first or second year they went to the finals. I think it was their first year, but
that will be a lot harder for baseball.
Yeah,
the Rockies haven't made it, and the Diamondbacks won. Well, I guess it's not, because the Diamondbacks won pretty quick.
The Marlins won year 4.
Yeah.
The Marlins and it's so.
I think there's a clear reason why Colorado hasn't won.
Yeah.
But no, it is going to be interesting, and especially even over the last week or so, we've even seen a little bit more rumblings about Orlando pushing for a team. So I wonder if maybe that would be another spot if the Rays are going to end up having to move, if Orlando's willing to give a stadium. Maybe you move there, and that's another kind of market and gets them out of the Tampa Bay, St. Pete area. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see where it gets these teams, because I feel like you're going to have to kind of balance where you put them. I don't think both East Coast teams it's going to be kind of all over the place. But it's going to be a lot of fun talk that we're going to have here in the next few years about that.
I've got a question for you, Commissioner Matt, for this change.
Yeah.
Are you realigning the divisions?
Yeah, I think so. I really would like a division where the Braves play the Marlins, Rays, and the Nashville team every year. So I think I'm going to do that.
Like a full South team there, so that the Braves aren't traveling up to New York all the time.
The Braves don't have to play the Phillies and the Mets and I like that idea.
Now, the real hard-hitting question out of all of this, you're going to bring realignment, but now you already have East, Central, and West. So what are you calling the fourth division?
Maybe South. I mean, I think that's kind of what the the NFL has. It's like East, West, South, and I guess North. I guess Central would kind of be North, because I think both leagues, American and National League, the Central teams are basically all in the North. So, I mean, like, I think the furthest south one might be St. Louis.
Did you like Midwest?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
You would have. Were you keeping American and National League with two divisions, or are you just doing 4 bigger divisions with like 8 teams in each?
I think you would do
AL, NL, and
you would have. I think you might have to realign a couple of teams, like switch back and forth, like switch maybe, like if you had to do that South division, you could have the Braves, Marlins, Nashville, and then the Rays would have to go to the NL or something. But you would try to keep it as close as much as you can. Like, I mean, it's just kind of, like you would have, I guess, like the Mets, Pirates, Phillies, and Nationals would be one, like the East, I guess, and then you would still kind of try to keep the alignment as it is, but you just add extra divisions. You'd have like 8 4-team divisions. So, and you would go back to 2 wild cards. So you'd still have your 12
winners,
right? You'd still have your 12-team playoffs, and you'd have 4 division winners and 2 wild cards in each league.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably what we're going to be seeing here soon.
Yeah.
But for my second rule change, I went with standardized start times for wherever the home team or local time of the game. Like right now, it's so hit or miss. Sometimes like the Dodgers start at 7:10 and the Angels start at 6:38 and the Mariners are starting at 6:40, and it's all over the place. Like, I think we should have a standardized, like, hey, every game starts at 6:30 local time on your weeknights and Friday, Saturday night games, and then getaway days should be at like 12 local time. Your Sunday games are 12 or 1 local time outside of your Sunday night baseball game. But I just think it's idiotic that we have games that start at 6:38 and then 6:40 and then sometimes 6:50 or 7 or 7:10. Like, you never know exactly, and they're all in the same. It's all like California or West Coast, or it's so stupid that we don't have centralized or standardized start times for wherever the local team is playing. Like, it would be so much easier, and that kind of goes back into growing the game as well. Like, if people don't know when the game's supposed to start, it's hard. Like, the NFL, you're going to have games start at 10 and 1. Well, if you're on the West Coast, but you get what I'm saying there. Like, the start times are those times. You don't have to look like, hey, what time's the game on tonight or today? You just know when it is. So I think that's one thing that could really help with help growing the game a little bit, is just having your start times the same for every local game.
Yeah, I agree with that. To add to it, let's stop the 11:30 a.m. Eastern Peacock game. Like, if you're gonna force us to have to do the Peacock game, at least make it like a 1 Eastern or 2 Eastern Sunday game instead of 11:30. I mean, it was annoying for me with it being at 10:30 my time, but I can't imagine when the Dodgers are on there, Damian, and you're having to get up at 8:30 to watch the Sunday morning game. It's stupid. They need to quit doing that.
See, to me, I don't mind that. Like, I roll out of bed and it's like, okay, baseball's on, and then I get to watch that game, and then we roll right into the other games. Like, But I understand what you're saying there. In that kind of goes along the lines. Like if you're going to have that special game, even like let's put it to a time that's not 8:30 in the morning or
Yeah.
whatever local time.
Hey,
But
and hey, one other thing. Let's have day games like every day, like one at
Yeah,
least.
you
Like I
need your
like having
one.
one day game,
well,
you
then
know.
that kind of takes away standardized start times,
But
Matt.
but we could still have the
There's a
like
day
if
start
it's
date.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say you're gonna have your getaway games anyways. You could have it at that standardized time, but you
I
know
think we need
that
to have them at 1:20, and then like probably a 4:30 game, and then 7, and then it just needs to be
I think I
one of
think a
those, right?
1 o'clock local time.
Are you saying 120? Because that's usually when the
That's
Cubs
the
start.
Cubs one. Yeah.
One
Hmm.
o'clock local time.
Homer.
Well, exactly, but I think everyone else should also do that. It's a good time.
I don't because most of us are at work and you can't watch the freaking games.
Put it on the radio.
I
Oh
don't
right, no
care.
wait, that goes back to the blackouts thing. You need to have it nice and easy to listen to the radio. Right? Give me an MLB radio app.
No, because most radio broadcasters are awful that are in baseball. I want to watch the broadcast.
The Cubs radio broadcast is way better than the TV broadcast. But
Sounds like a personal problem. Anyways, what is your last kind of out there now rule change?
yeah, let's do a crazy one. With the a catcher can drop strike 3 and a batter can take first base, right? Well, why, right? Is basically the issue. Why does that matter? If runners are on base and you drop strike 3, then that doesn't matter, right? The batter's just out. So at that point, it becomes kind of a pointless rule unless on any wild pitch a batter can run to first base. So my rule change is that batters can steal first. Now this is getting done in I think the Atlantic League as a rule, and I don't think it's particularly invasive because these types of plays only happen every so often, right? But it increases that ability for a guy like Billy Hamilton, for example, who really can't hit, but every now and again he'll have a chance to just take first base based on his speed alone, and it'll increase the need for a good blocking catcher. It'll increase the need for a catcher with a good arm, right? It'll increase value in the catching market as well as the speed market, and already we're working on having a stronger speed market with the pitch clock, the stolen bases, the engagements, and we're seeing an increase in steals. It'll be very interesting to see if a rule like this could be implemented to also help increase the need and the desire for pro speed players. So this is my little rule change here to not change the game too much, but hopefully just provide a little bit of an extra incentive to not throw those careless strikes in the batter's box at risk of uh, you know losing first base to a speedy guy.
Yeah, I'm not. I think all three of our rules here aren't ones that I would just love to have in the game, but they're all interesting, and I do like the idea of that one is in just increasing the catcher, the catcher's value, and the fact that like it is kind of goofy sometimes you're watching a game and the catcher doesn't even attempt to block the ball when there's nobody on base, like he just kind of lets it go flying by, like it looks kind of goofy. So I guess in some ways that could be a nice thing too, but it'd be interesting to see how often that it would come into play. I wonder how. And of course the Atlantic League's so weird, but I wonder how often that would actually come into play. It'd be interesting to see.
I think it'd be really interesting as well, especially if it's on any of the pitches, and this is like any pitch at any time they can take it. Like that would be really, really finicky and interesting, and make it really weird. So I like that we put it in this spot. But Matt, what's your out there rule change?
Yeah, mine's basically when we took away the DH, or when we inserted, excuse me, the DH into the National League, we took away a lot of strategy out of the game. So my idea was that you basically tie your DH to the pitcher. So like when the pitcher leaves, you lose your DH. And I kind of liked the idea just because it incentivizing a lot of the issue we've had with starting pitching has been that like pitchers are getting pulled really early, like fourth, fifth inning all the time. You don't want to see the lineup a third time, even if their pitch counts are pretty low. And I think that in some ways it incentivizes you to leave your pitcher in the game unless he's like not able to continue because of how long he's been, how many pitches he's thrown, and I think it adds a little bit of strategy, as in like late in games how you manage it, how you kind of funnel through like your bench, and adds value to bench players too. Maybe you might even add a roster spot if you do this or something. But I thought it was kind of an interesting idea. It was something that had been brought up by a lot of people back when they inserted the DH, because they were worried, and I kind of agreed with it, that you're just going to lose a little bit of that strategy when you do that. Even though we'd much rather see a DH hit than a pitcher hit. I think that it'd be kind of an interesting way to kind of bring back a little bit of that strategy, but I don't think it'll happen. But I thought it was just kind of an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, I love this rule. I was an advocate for this rule over a year ago, at least, before the DH was even brought together. I just think it's the perfect way to balance out the DH being full time in with all teams, and like the old way of playing with the pitcher hitting, right? It also kind of removes that opener, which is the big one that I like. I hate the opener. I hate that teams are just starting out with a relief pitcher for absolutely no consequences other than, now they just have to use more of their bullpen. And with teams with a really deep bullpen and with pitchers that can run, 3, 4, 5 innings out of the bullpen, it's much less impactful. And the starting pitcher role is maybe one of the coolest roles in baseball at this point, and how it's always been, and losing out on that is just not it's not good for baseball, I don't think. I mean, think about all the iconic starting pitchers, and we're trying to get them to be able to throw longer, and it's just this is the type of rule that could actually do that. So I actually think this rule is maybe not so outlandish, I guess, is my kind of final point there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it'd be interesting to see how it would be implemented like throughout, and how much teams would actually vary, because I'm not sure that it would vary much about keeping a pitcher out there any longer. I think it would just make sure that your depth on your team is a lot better, so you could just pinch hit at the time more often. I don't think it would actually bring the effect of making sure that pitchers go longer. I think the only thing is maybe the opener rule, but even then it's like, the opener rule doesn't bother me when you have a guy like, what's the difference between a starting pitcher going 5 innings and then using the relievers the rest of the way, and then using a guy to start the game for the first inning, and then a guy coming out and pitching 5 innings, and then using the bullpen from the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Like, there's really no difference there. It's just you're flipping the bullpen arm to be at the beginning. It would stop that, but I don't know it would actually stop the long term of the starting pitcher thing. But it is interesting. Like, if you have a guy like a notorious DH like David Ortiz, like if you're saying that, hey, once our starter's out, you're pulled from the game and you can't play anymore, and that's in the 5th inning, like, it's a pretty big deal. It would cause maybe David Ortiz doesn't start every game at the time, or something,
or he's forced to play first base.
Yeah, I was gonna say, force them to have some defensive value too. Kind of got to stay in the lineup.
Yeah, I think when we loved the DH, so that the players who were super bad defensively could still play, and now we're saying nope. Now you got to have the defensive caliber to play again. It just seems weird, but at the same time, I completely understand it. It's been the idea, and it would be interesting to see how it would be implemented at the end of the day.
My one thought on the defensive value thing, though, is they still do get 2+ at bats, and you could also make some kind of contingency that if the starting pitcher exits the game before the 5th inning, for example, that the DH can stay in the spot until a certain time period in the game. It's something to that effect, where, if your starter just absolutely stinks, you don't want to just keep throwing him out there so your DH can keep hitting, that's maybe the bad part about the rule.
Or maybe if it's like, if your starting pitcher gets past 5 innings, then you can keep the DH the entire game.
Yeah, or especially with injury, like if your starting pitcher gets pulled for injury, you keep the DH just tied to the next guy or something. Like, cause that's one thing that I would worry about is if like your pitcher is kind of banged up, but he doesn't want to get pulled because he wants that DH to lead off the next inning, and he makes it worse or something. Like, so I could see that too. But
Yeah. Anyways, for my last kind of out there rule change, it's that teams can then switch any batter in the lineup one time. So we know that usually in the biggest moments of other sports, when it usually comes down to it at the end of the game in basketball, LeBron James or Steph Curry or Kevin Durant or Giannis, they're going to have the ball in their hands taking the shot. In football, if the Chiefs are on offense, Patrick Mahomes is going to have the ball in his hands. Josh Allen's going to have the ball in his hands. Like the most talented player are going to have the ability at the end of the game to impact it at the biggest moments. In baseball, we're not always guaranteed that. So what if in the bottom of the ninth inning or the top of the ninth inning or somewhere you have a situation where you can either win the game or let's say it's in the seventh inning and you're down one run, but you have bases loaded and 2 outs. And say you're the Angels, Mike Trout's not up for, 5 more batters. You know that you're not going to get to his spot in this inning where the biggest moment is. What if you could take Mike Trout and put him at the plate for that one at bat, and then he stays in that spot for the rest of the game? So where if he doesn't get it done again, or if if that it doesn't happen there, it's even longer until he gets his opportunity again, or he has to face through the whole lineup again to get that opportunity. But it would allow teams to, in the biggest moments, put their one star or their most clutch guy that they want at bat at the moment out there. We have closers that usually come in at the end of the game. Why not be able to have your best hitter out there at the biggest moments in each game?
yeah, I think that's interesting. It's definitely unique. I haven't heard that idea before. I think it's a good thought. I don't love one thing that I like about not having that is that sometimes you get either a super random player that's always extremely clutch. Like I heard a stat earlier that Alex Verdugo had as many walk-offs in his career as Derek Jeter, which is
Yeah.
kind of funny. And the fact that sometimes like Delman Young in the playoffs, I don't know if you remember how freaking insane he was in clutch moments in the playoffs. Like just I think that some of those things are you know, uh, I like, but at the same time, from a marketing aspect, you look at like your star player is the one that's going to make the big play, and you can market that really well. Is like, I get it. It's interesting. I don't totally hate it. I think it's definitely an interesting idea, but I guess that's kind of why we're doing these like wacky ideas. They're probably not going to happen, but they're interesting.
I like
Yeah.
this idea and its wackiness, right? In that I do not like the changing of the lineup in this way, but it, at its core, this is a good idea, right? This is the perfect way to, provide a very good, you know, marketable moments for your stars, right? I mean, I'm thinking back to the World Baseball Classic with Otani and Trout, and that just being the biggest moment of the whole tournament, and how it just kind of boiled down to the best pitcher versus the best hitter. But if you're going to any normal baseball game or any regular season game or any World Series game, they don't always boil down to that, right? And so kind of the beautiful thing about baseball is that anybody can have a big moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you're losing that to some degree, because obviously you can only do it once, and it's the kind of thing you just deploy in the effort to try to win the game in the big moment. But I would say it's got its merits for sure, because you do want to have Mike Trout in those more advantageous spots. You're gonna run into guys, maybe the guys who automatically get jumped there, like Trout, like Otani, Tatis. They're gonna end up with a lot more RBI, I would say, in the big spots. So you might run into like RBI, like not rules, but records.
Mm-hmm.
They might go after those RBI records with these kinds of changes. I like it. It's wacky. It's not. It's probably not even as wacky as the runner on second in extra innings rule, and that's one we've been running with for a while. But it's still it's just it bites at me a little bit to where I would push against it. But if they implemented it, I wouldn't hate it.
It's one of those things. It's like, sometimes you just end up with Seiya Suzuki coming up in a one-run game with the bases loaded. It just happens. So
Yeah, and then they could just pinch hit and use Nick Madrigal there instead.
Madrigal is like 2 for 2 today or something like that. He's doing really good.
No, but I see.
Sorry, David.
Did he get out? Oh, he did get out. Oh man. My thing ain't updated yet.
I like the ability to have it, and then the kind of the drawback against it is, like I said, if Trout isn't able to get it done there, and he says with like the lineup changing aspect of it, like then you're forced to have, I don't know, who's like an 8-hole hitter for them right now.
Luis Rengifo.
Luis Rengifo would then be your 2-hole hitter or 3-hole hitter for the rest of the game if you used it in the 7th inning, or something. But I do see what the the drawback of, like, hey, with the records being thing. But I just think from the marketing standpoint of it, like you mentioned the Ohtani and Trout at bat, and it was beautiful because it happened organically. But like, you can have that ability to have those moments every game, every night, basically multiple times a night in these 1-run games. Like, it would change the whole aspect of 1-run games and everything in baseball. I think it'd be kind of cool. Yeah. But it's kind of why it's out there. But that is our 3 rule changes as each of us are commissioners. So with our 9 rule changes, do you guys think we've made the game better here?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Better than Rob Manfred ever could?
Not with all of them, but definitely with a few of them. So
okay, it's a yes or no question. That's all we're doing.
Yeah,
we're just going to say yes. We're just going to say yes.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so before we go ahead and wrap it up, we did have some injury news this week and a couple big ones. So first and foremost, we had Max Fried. I think he left to start early. Matt, you'll be able to kind of go into it a little bit more when we get to it. But and then he was skipped, I believe, and basically came out today. He has a forearm strain. He's going to be put on the IL. Doesn't seem like the fear of Tommy John surgery is there, but it does seem like it's going to be a longer term issue.
Yeah, so he didn't get pulled from his last start, which is actually weird because, like, over the weekend, like, nobody knew there was any issue, and then the Braves ended up announcing, today he was supposed to start Wednesday, and they put it on their calendar as like TBD after it had said Fried previously, and everyone's like, "What's going on?" And they kind of were didn't really. They asked in the press conference, and they just said, "We're working through things, and we'll find out later." And everyone's like, "What's going on?" And then this morning, it got announced forearm strain, and everyone panicked because that's almost always or not almost always, but a lot of times that's Tommy John. And then they said they kind of came back later in the press conferences and stuff, and they said that it wasn't Tommy John surgery. The UCL was totally fine after imaging, and that they're just gonna have to shut him down. And basically, I'm assuming he'll probably be shut down for about a month. And then they said he's gonna pretty much need an entire spring training level build up again. So the timetable that sounds like it's probably early July for him. So he'll miss roughly 2 months, which kind of sucks. The Braves are already missing Kyle Wright, which is not optimal, even though he wasn't really pitching all that great this year so far. And they're gonna have to rely on some young guys. They're gonna either end up with Dodd or Schuster in the rotation for the next 2 months. And then I think that you're probably going to see Mike Soroka pretty soon, which could kind of be the silver lining in this. It'll be great to see him get back to the big league level. He's been pitching in AAA and consistently going out there and doing his thing every 5 days, or every 6 days. So I'll be so thrilled to see him come back, if that ends up coming true soon. But hate it for Max Fried. Hopefully it's something that doesn't linger after, the Braves have put themselves in a position where 2 months or, they could probably weather the storm, but hopefully it's not something that lingers and, affects them down the stretch and potentially into the postseason. So, but hopefully he gets well soon.
Got anything on it, David?
Nope.
Injuries
are frustrating at this point, but we'll see if any of these guys can get back Maybe not, obviously not Luis Garcia. We'll see if the Astros can kind of buoy that. They are, I think, still below 500 as of right now. They are, and their game hasn't started yet. So, yeah, still below 500 as of the recording of this podcast, and that is not the start that we kind of expected them to be at.
Yeah, not at all. And then that rotation, the question marks about it get to another level with Luis Garcia now being out for the year, going to have Tommy John surgery. They were already going to talk about limiting Hunter Brown at some point this year. He's looked shaky, I think, 2 of his last 3 starts. So you're really going to need Christian Javier and Framber Valdez and Lance McCullers to get back healthy, because they didn't really sign much depth there in the starting rotation, so they're going to have a lot of question marks.
Yeah,
Not that they would have been okay if they had Verlander. He's been out the whole season too. So
true.
Yeah, and you
Maybe
mentioned
doesn't
that.
get cursed by the Mets curse though.
That's true. The Mets curse is real. Max Scherzer got scratched tonight.
Yeah.
But you look at the Astros too, and like y'all talked about, the rotation is so thin. I mean, you're about to rely on like J.P. Sears coming up and stuff, and like
JP France.
yeah, and Forrest Whitley. Like these guys are not like they're not worlds. I mean, I guess they could be, but they're not like when you're in a contending team, you don't want that as your like 3, 4, 5 type guys. But then their lineup isn't all that. I mean, they've got their top of their lineup is really good. They just don't have the same depth that they've had. Like they've got Altuve's still out. They got Dubon playing second base. Bregman's playing bad. Abreu's been horrible. Like you look at and then you got Jake Myers in there. Martin Maldonado they refuse to take out of the lineup ever. Like you got Jordan and Tucker and I guess Pena, but like Jordan and Tucker are really the only 2 guys that just truly scare you in that lineup too. So I don't know. The Astros, they're not super impressive, and I mean with the way that the Rangers are playing and the way that the Angels are playing to a certain extent, like that's not going to be super easy to come back and win that division for them this year.
And I trust the Mariners to get going too.
Yeah.
Yeah. They should be getting Michael Brantley back relatively soon as well.
They need him back.
So, and I think Altuve is getting ready to start hitting or getting ready to start a rehab assignment. I believe I've seen.
Yeah.
So he's probably not all that far away, but they need that in the lineup, especially if they have the rotation question marks that they have right now. But then the last couple bits of news we had are coming from the New York Yankees. Aaron Judge got activated from the IL today, so he is back. And then we didn't really get to hit on it last week, but Carlos Rodon was getting back to throwing and then has now been diagnosed with a chronic back issue that we're not even sure. They said they're not even going to put a timeline or timetable on how long he's supposed to be shut down for now or out. So that's not a great thing for their biggest free agent signing right there to kind of be the formidable top of that rotation there in New York.
Yeah, that's not great for them. I mean, Carlos Rodon's a guy where we said going in, like, if this guy is healthy, like, this is going to be a very good signing if he's healthy. But that's been his issue for a while, and it looks like that's going to be his issue going forward. And I hopefully the chronic back issue, you never know what that fully means. Like, I think Clayton Kershaw's got a chronic back issue, but he's still, like, pitching 150-ish innings. He just has a couple weeks a year where he has to go on the IL for a little while and take some time off, but he's able to come back every time. Like, is it going to be that kind of chronic back issue, or is it going to be something really, that's going to...
Mike Trout was diagnosed with one last year, too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just... Is it going to be one of those things, or is it going to be one of those things where it's like he's basically going to have to turn into a reliever or something? Like, it'll be interesting to see, and wish him the best. He's a good story after going through what he went through and then turning into a true ace. And it sucks to see him have this issue.
Yeah, I'm frustrated for Rodon, but I am also then thankful that my team isn't dealing with this at this point. That being said, not that they got anything better. Talon's been kind of terrible, but it's one of those things where Rodon hasn't pitched at all, right? And that's the kind of the straw you're worried about, like a Strasburg type of deal here at this point.
Yeah.
Hopefully he gets on the field at all. So that's what we're hoping for at this point.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and jump over to players of the week and then go ahead and wrap this show up. So, David, who do you got for your player this week?
Yeah, I went with Lourdes Gurriel from the Diamondbacks, and I think actually we got a couple of Diamondbacks this week. Diamondbacks offense has been kind of going nuts, but Gurriel hit 4 home runs this week, 30% walk rate on the week, a 571 batting average, 700 on base percentage, a 1429 slug, 413 WRC plus. I just a monster week for Lourdes Gurriel. And he's the kind of streaky bat that you expect to have a week or two like this in any given year, right? I mean, but the fact that he's showing that patience too, and then hammering those mistakes when they come into the zone, it's just really awesome. And yeah, I love Lourdes Gurriel. Liked him for a long time, and he's the kind of guy who the Diamondbacks picking him up was kind of eye opening because he's got that ability to carry for a week here like he is this week, and I think this Diamondbacks offense is kind of clearly showing that it's capable of getting to the playoffs based on having guys like him and your guy here, Matt. So this is big for the Diamondbacks having multiple players of the week, guys who are just absolutely hammering the ball. Big picture, it's important for them, and they're 5 games over 500 right now. They're having a really, really good start to the year.
It's interesting you said about Lourdes Gurriel because I didn't even realize it until you had said the acquisition. Dalton Varsho's fourth this week.
I was about to say, I just noticed that too.
like he's literally right there, like 0.01 WAR behind Gurriel. So
the true win-win trade.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, that's crazy. And of course now the win-win trade, but Gabriel Moreno has also been a starting catcher, so.
Yeah, and he also hit 375 this week, just in case you were wondering. It's been a hell of a week for that trade.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, I get that one in the Pablo Lopez / Luis Arias trade. Both of those trades have been really, really good, beneficial for both teams so far. But
unlike the Sean Murphy one.
Hey, Esteury Ruiz stole six bases this week.
Did you see his center field play that he had in Cincinnati or Kansas City over the weekend?
I think I remember that there was a play. I don't remember what it was.
He had a good play.
No, there was a bad one.
I thought I remember there being a
diving catch. Yeah.
I thought I remember there being a mistake, but I didn't.
Yeah, there was one that was like to center field, and he like came in and like stopped and went back and like didn't know where the ball was and like dove and was like 5 feet from the ball and it rolled all the way to the wall.
That's gonna be a yikes.
It was really bad.
He needs the stealing first rule.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He really does. But yeah, the guy that, as David alluded to, the guy I picked was Christian Walker. He hit 444 this week, 464 on base, but a 1.074 slug, and he hit 5 home runs, and that's in 28 plate appearances. So, great week for the first baseman from the Diamondbacks. He's been he's had a little bit of a slow start this year, but his numbers look fine. In fact, on the season now, he's up to a 133 WRC plus after this big week. It's going to keep going up. His walk rate's a little bit lower than it has been, but it's kind of early season noise still a little bit there. And he, his batting average on balls in play is up a lot, which is nice to see because that's kind of been the thing that held him back last year. So definitely a good player. Definitely like a surefire Gold Glove caliber first baseman too. He might be the best defensive first baseman in the game. So very good player. And Christian Walker had a great week, and I want to shout him out. And as we mentioned, the Diamondbacks off to a good start, and with some of the NL East teams struggling, like the Mets and Phillies, there might be that extra playoff spot kind of open that we were kind of thinking the Mets and Phillies might run away with. Whereas, you're probably going to have the Dodgers and Padres are going to probably make it, but there's going to be that extra team, whether it's the second place team in the Central or the third place team in the West, maybe, and that could be the Diamondbacks. So definitely a good start for them, and let's see if they keep it going.
Yeah, it's been a really good start for them, and I know I've said it before or not, but I'll say it again. Like, if this team is like this, they will be aggressive at the deadline to make upgrades there. So if they keep this up, like, they could be one of the scary teams because most people thought they were only a year or two really away from competing, but if they're showing it now, they can make that move to push that window up.
Go get that pitcher. Go get Dylan Cease.
Yeah. I mean, Heck, you could even go get Dylan Cease and like Tim Anderson or another bat to put into that lineup.
Throw in
Because
Whoa! What would you do with Nick Ahmed?
well, I was gonna say, get that reliever
they could, yeah.
From the White Sox?
from
Don't they
White
have the
Sox.
worst bullpen in the majors? I'm pretty
Well, I
sure
mean,
they do.
got a
Except
good
for
reliever.
Yeah, Liam Hendricks is
Kendall
coming back.
Hendricks is going to be back soon. They've got Kendall Graveman. Like, you can get one of those guys if Hendricks
Yeah.
comes back healthy. Which, hey, he made a shout out to him too. He made a rehab appearance this week for the first
He
time,
did.
coming off of cancer. So that's fantastic to hear. I was very excited for that.
Yeah, he looked really good too, actually.
by war, the White Sox bullpen is 29th in the majors at the moment, by the way. Just
Not the worst.
Not the
Get
worst.
wrecked.
Oakland A's are the worst. Surprising no
Should
one.
know.
White Sox bullpen is a 6.37 ERA.
Yeah, but do they have a negative pitching war? Didn't think
Yes,
so.
yes, they do.
Oh, do they now?
Bullpen,
Oh yeah.
Dang.
Oh, that's just in relievers. I was just looking at relievers.
yeah.
Let me check the all. They might. It's close because they are not good either.
Giolito might have saved
0.9 pitching war
there
this
it
season.
is.
You know who's 29th? The New York Mets.
Yeah, it didn't surprise me. They've been bad.
They have been bad, and they have been missing their aces, and it's almost like betting on 40-year-old players wasn't a good move.
Oh, that's probably
Who
right.
would've thought?
That's entirely a tangent here. Damien, who's your player of the week?
Yeah. Speaking of people who could seem like 40-year-old players at times, Anthony Rendon actually. His whole thing is he needs just to stay healthy, which is kind of where the 40-year-old player thing comes in. But Anthony Rendon is so damn good still, even when he's been battling the injuries the past couple years, and he kind of started off a little slow this year, and he's really started to find that stroke over the last 2.5 weeks. He batted .474 this week, a .630 on base, .632 slugging. Finally hit his first homer of the season. And really, it's just the Angels are going to need this guy if they want any chance to be competitive this year. They need him to play at the level that he's been playing at recently, like one of the best hitters in baseball when he signed there. And he needs to stay healthy. And now that he's been healthy so far this season, he's finally starting to turn it on. And it's cool to see when Rendon is healthy and adding to that lineup with Trout and Ohtani there. And with Renfroe, even he's been brings that added power to that lineup too. But really, just they need him to stay healthy, and he had finally a good week enough where I could pick him for player of the week. So I went with Rendon. But I know collectively we wanted to shout out Javi Baez this week for only having a 3.2% strikeout rate.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's had twice
Hell
the
yeah.
most strikeouts, I think, too.
Yep.
He's actually walked a couple times, so
I believe in this change too. He's made a stance change where he's more upright, bats a little closer to the zone, and he's not doing the bat waggle before he swings. It's got him a lot more focused, and he looks a lot more comfortable at the plate right now.
He has a slower leg kick up too, doesn't he? I think he's like holding it up a lot and pausing it a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. I saw somebody doing a breakdown on it, so.
Really surprised that he was willing to make those changes at the stage of his career, too.
Well, yeah.
I'm not, but it is refreshing to see him making some legitimate plate approach changes and some stuff that can definitely elongate his prime out a little more and kind of get him back into that, star player caliber, leader that he has to be for Detroit to have any success going forward.
Yeah,
also, let's shout out.
So they could trade him.
Let's shout out Luis Robert, who's the number 1 player in WAR this week. We didn't pick him. That's 2 players in the top 10 in WAR this week that were benched last week.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that works. Bench your players if they're not giving effort. That works, man.
Willson Contreras about to hit 20 home runs next week.
He won the game for him yesterday. He had a single and an RBI double.
Yep.
He did. Oh, man, we've really flew off the rails here at the back end of this show.
It's good baseball talk.
Yeah, it is, and it's good banter. But anything else you guys want to hit on before we go ahead and wrap it up here?
The Chicago Cubs are morons for keeping Chris Morel in Iowa. That is all.
All right, Matt, what is your Braves take, real quick?
Well, my Braves take is they're good still, and they're winning. But I was gonna make fun of the Mets for losing again to the Reds tonight. They're 17-19 on the season now, so that's my take.
I just figured we were all just going to do homer takes here at
Sure.
the end.
Well, the Mets losing is a homer take, so.
There you go. There you go. Don't put crying Clayton Kershaw's on the fucking video board.
That's not just a homer take. That's a take that everybody except Padres fans I think is in agreement on, and it's childish and weird, and
it's I'm really above this whole like the Padres trying to force this thing to be a rivalry when it's not.
It reeks of desperation when you do that. Like it's just, I'm all about having fun and stuff, but it just kind of reeks of desperation.
Absolutely. And then they lost the next two, so it was beautiful. Anyways, this show was really flew off here at the end, but thank you guys for tuning in to episode 125 of the Bat Flip Podcast, and we will catch you guys next week.